Eric, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Libby?
I'm good. You told me that you're in a room that's behind a secret bookshelf in a
It
co-working space.
it is. I had to open a bookshelf to get in here, and it's
I
called the
love that.
Mark Twain room. It's
Okay.
great. It's
And
lovely.
you had to say the secret password, nutmeg or
Now
something to get in there.
now I'm part of some society. It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. It's all fine. It's part of a pyramid scheme. So we have one of my favorite humans today with us. I'm so excited. Matt, welcome. We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
This is delightful. So Matt and I have worked together in a couple previous iterations, and I continue to look for ways to work with him because he is my sensei. He is my Yoda. He is all things. That's all of Star Wars that I know. So it ends there. But Matt, can you just tell us a bit about who you are and what you do and what your focus is? And, we talk a lot about presentations on here. So what is your relationship with speaking and presenting and all that?
Yeah, well, first, thank you so much. Checks in the mail. Yeah, Matthew Smith. I'm the head of strategy at Veritex Bank, and I've given enough QBR business review presentations to last a lifetime. So this topic is near and dear to my heart. I've got some battle scars to share and maybe some successes, but yeah, this is a fun topic for me.
Very cool. Okay. So I have sold you to Eric, to the internet, to everyone as the most prepared person I have ever met. And so there's not a close second that I can think of when it comes to walking into an executive meeting, ready to tell your story, but also ready for any objection or question that may get asked. And I learned a ton from you about how to do this and how to take very seriously the chance that you may only get in front of the C-suite 1 hour a month, and you don't want to squander that hour, and you want to do everything you can in your power to make the best of it. So can you break that down a little bit for us about when you have a big executive meeting coming up, either where you have to give an update or sell something? How do you approach that? And if you could kind of walk us through your process and how you think about that and what you do to get ready for that.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm absolutely terrified on going into a meeting like that and having a question be asked of me that I don't know the answer to. So that's probably the underlying driver around kind of why I do what I do. But kind of how I think about it, first and foremost, is if you're a leader giving an update like this, you need to know the objective of the meeting, what you're trying to accomplish. A simple update or a simple overview to an executive team is absolutely a waste of time. You have to have something that you're looking for, whether it's additional resources, support, headcount. You got to know, you got to have an objective, and you've got to know what you want. And then number two, you have to put yourself in a mindset that you're going to carry these important executives down a logical journey that naturally ends with you accomplishing your objective. If you put yourself in that mindset out of the gate, you've already accomplished most of what you need to do. That said, there's a couple things you absolutely need to know as you go into discussions like this. Number one, you need to know your business better than anybody in the room. It's an absolute no-no for someone to know something about your business that you don't know and that you're up to speed on. So you got to go through a process, and the process really starts with the numbers, understanding the critical output numbers and KPIs, understanding the input numbers and input metrics that influence those KPIs. Knowing those cold is absolutely critical, because if you're in the room with a CFO, they're absolutely going to ask you those types of questions. If you're in the room with HR, they're likely going to ask you things that are a little bit more qualitative around people, around culture, processes. Those are also things that you're going to need to know. The thing that you're looking for, the outcome that you're looking for, is there's no question that I'm going to be asked that I don't have a clear answer to, and even a clear recommendation. So that's number one. Number two is you really need to know your audience. Most of these meetings are comprised of decision makers, influencers, and observers. Okay. You need to have a good understanding. If you're requesting something or you have something that you need from decision makers, you need to know that. All these decision makers are going to have people in the room that influence them on the types of decisions that you will make. It's important to know what are those maybe secondary priorities for you, but they're primary priorities for potential influencers. You need to know that. You need to understand it. And then last are the observers. And it's important to know what type of observers you have. Are they going to be net promoters of what you're trying to do? Or are they net neutral? And you may even run into some situations where you've got some folks that are net detractors. Mm-hmm. And in scenarios like that, I would strongly recommend, especially if you have enough time, leveraging pre-meetings. If you know that there's a chief risk officer that inherently has issues with an approach that you're taking, and you feel confident that he or she's going to bring that up in that meeting, it's a good idea to get in front of that person before that meeting, talk about the topic, make sure that you guys are aligned on a potential process so you don't have any snares or snags that throw a meeting completely off track.
Right. When you're talking through all of this, my first reaction is, oh my gosh, that sounds like so much work. But then when I think about if somebody came to a meeting that prepared to talk to me and had put thought into who I am, the things that keep me up at night, the way I'm compensated, the way that this works into my strategic plan, you're making it so easy for them to say yes to whatever it is that you're trying to sell them. And so I think it's so important to put yourself in the shoes of that executive of, oh, wow, everyone else today has wasted my time, but this person put thought, planning, preparation, and a lot of prep into the data before we met. And so this is the person that everyone wants to have a meeting with, is this prepared person, because I think the mindset for almost everybody else is, I'm going to walk in and we're going to read numbers off of a slide. And then I can always say, I don't know, but I'll get back to you later on. And I know you have a strong reaction to the answer of, I don't know, I'll get back to you. So tell me why you hate that answer, giving that answer in an executive meeting.
Well, if the questions come to you about your business, the expectation is that you know it. I mean, that's why you're an executive. That's why they've put you in that role, for you to know your business backwards and forward. And they're likely going to be asking you questions about your business. So if you don't know it, people will say it's okay to say you don't know. But if you don't know it, for sure, someone's going in that room is going to be like, well, what other things do they don't know about their business?
Yeah.
Is it important? Do we have the right person in this role? And I say that because candidly, I've been asked questions that I should have known about my business that I didn't know. It did not end well for me. And I swore that I would do everything in my power to make sure that it never happens again. Because it's an icky, yucky feeling for someone to ask you questions that you should know, but you don't.
The way you ask those follow-up questions, it's almost like, if by saying you don't know the answer to something about your business, it almost kind of has like a trust eroding effect, right? Like, or at least that would be the biggest fear, is that if you're unable to represent your line of business or the strategy behind it, or even some of the details behind that strategy, your audience may lose trust in you, not only as a presenter, but as a performer in the company.
There's no doubt about it. And you see the immediate nonverbal feedback when you're in a meeting and someone asks a question to you or someone else about something that they should know and they don't know it. You see the negative body language. They're like, that wasn't good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Matt, when you and I worked together, you had a famous, I might say infamous, what you called your back pocket list. And so what I remember is that working with you, presentations kind of had two phases. The first phase, we were developing the story, developing the deck. At some point that got shipped off to be sent out as a pre-read. That was a hard deadline. And that was when the real fun began. There was no sigh of relief. It was, let's roll up our sleeves and dig in, because your back pocket list was something that we pulled data for, pulled information for. So can you tell me more, when I say your back pocket list, can you describe what that is and how that's part of your preparation for walking into a meeting?
Yep. Libby, you know me, I'm a broken record on a lot of things. It really does start with you as the executive and leader having a clear understanding of your objective on what it is you're wanting to accomplish. Once you understand that, you have to ask yourself the question, what must be true in order for the objective for this meeting or this session to be met, for us to achieve success in that meeting? If you know your business, the major things will start to come to your head. And so then I'll start with the stuff that I think drove us crazy, and that's the numbers and the quant stuff. I start at the end first and kind of work backwards. Okay. What is our overall financial and profitability performance? And then go into the key output metrics that drive that, and then start to really dig into, okay, what are the input metrics that drive the output metrics? So activity levels drive pipeline drives sales drives profitability if it's profitable in its own right. So that would be an example. And the thing, Libby and Eric, that I'm looking for whenever I dig into that, I'm looking for causality. Okay. Any executive can look at the numbers and see the numbers. They can see the output numbers. They can see the input numbers. What they're looking for from an executive is, does this person understand how input metrics are driving the outcomes of output metrics? Mm-hmm. So, for example, if customer retention is up 5% year on year, you want to be able to explain that this is because we implemented a new onboarding and check-in process 9 months ago, and we saw the trend once training completed. We saw the trend hockey stick over the course of the last 90 days. That is an example of understanding your output metrics, which is customer retention, your input metrics, which is how you're handling that, and its causality into improved performance. Okay, that's number one. So then number two is what I would call all the qualitative components. Then let's just take that particular example. You want to have client stories, client success stories that give you examples of how that worked. You want to talk about, if you have a sales organization, what certain sales execs are doing to drive this performance. Things that are happening from a process standpoint that are either good or bad. If they're good, you want to highlight it so it's a best practice. If they're bad, that may be part of your objective. That may be part of what you're trying to accomplish in the meeting. So if you think about that and you understand the logical story from start to end, and then work backwards from there, it will likely tell you all the little nooks and crannies that you need to prepare for to make sure that you're ready for a logical but complete discussion.
It makes total sense. It reminds me of there's this data guy that I like. He talks about the analytics path to value. And he talks about how most of us deliver data, when in reality, we need to take that data all the way down the spectrum to actionable insights. And so what I'm hearing from what you're saying is, you don't want your audience to have to be the one to put together, well, I think this is happening because of this. Is that what you think? You want to be the one examining the causality and examining the drivers and delivering that fully, completely baked, actionable insight to the executive that you're presenting to, so they don't have to do that analytical work. So you're not passing along work to your audience, but you have done that work.
That's exactly. I'm glad you're bringing that up. When an analyst sends me just a bunch of numbers with no insights or analysis, quite frankly, it pisses me off. Like anybody can do that. Your job is to understand what it means and how it impacts the business and give me those insights so I don't have to work so hard.
Right. Somebody has to do the work, and it's either the person who's creating the story or the person who's hearing the story. And when we half-ass the prep, then we're in reality just passing all that information and passing all that work down to our audience and saying, hey, here's the raw ingredients for a story, some assembly required, you have to do it. And if you're asking for a yes, or if you're asking for budget or headcount, then that answer is always going to be a no if you're presenting half-baked data. So it's a way to further what it is that you're actually looking for and hoping to get a yes out of.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And you were talking about how this is not just about getting to a yes, getting the headcount, the budget, whatever, but it's a great forcing mechanism for leaders because it forces you to know your business better than anybody. And so it's really not just about the meeting. It's about benefits beyond that.
Yeah, it's to me, this is one of the biggest shadow benefits of all of this. When I started getting better at these types of conversations is when I stopped thinking of this as a massive executive administrative exercise. And I started thinking about it as, okay, this is an opportunity for me to potentially secure some valuable resources or insights that are going to allow us to move our business forward. And then realize that in this, very structured process that I follow, I invariably learn something about our business or some kind of nuance about our business that I didn't know before. That structure, yes, it obviously helps have a a good, productive conversation with, high-level C-suite executives. But invariably, I come up with a couple of ideas or thoughts that we need to implement within the business that I didn't know before I started the process. So I think if you can change your mindset in these types of meetings from, this is not I have to do this, I get to do this. And the benefits are benefits for your business and what you're going to get from these conversations, and the benefits that you get in added knowledge about your own ways of working in your own organization.
For
So
sure.
can I expand on that for a second? So basically what you're saying is the idea of being in that seat, being the presenter in a business update in a room with executives, you're basically describing that as a privilege.
You bet. There's no doubt about it.
And it's a mindset thing, right? If you see it as a gift, if you see it as something to be grateful for, it changes your approach.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And, I just think back to some items in some meetings that Libby, you and I have had in the past. And, when you walk out of that room and you're talking with the CEO, and the CEO says, okay, I really like what you're doing, and I really like how you structured that, you're going to get what you need as long as you perform. And please call me if you run into any roadblocks along the way. Those are the types of signals that you get from these conversations that say you've done a good job. You're going to get signals that you haven't done a good job when they say things like, thank you, this is good information, things for us to think about. That's generally a pretty good tell that says that you gave them an update and you didn't carry them down a structured process to get outcomes.
Right. Then it lives on a parking lot and it gets revisited next quarter or kick the can. Yeah.
That's right.
And still doesn't move forward. And in a sales context, I feel like this presents itself as, you know what, there's a lot of data here. Why don't you just leave it with us and we can go over this on our own time. And that's the indication of, oh, wow, we delivered raw data and not a story and a compelling understanding of what the customer suffers from and all of that. So yes, I know that has other, it's true in other contexts. So I want to shift gears a second. And so instead of talking about big executive meetings, talk to me, Matt, about how you think about if you have to communicate a strategy to a large group of people. If you run a sales organization, if you run a company, and you need to get everyone on board with your strategy because these are going to be the folks carrying out and implementing your strategy, I think all of our instinct is to say, okay, here's my 12-point strategy. It's super important everyone understands subpoint A and part 3. And let's really dive in. You need to get all of this because you need to understand my brilliance and everything. So tell me how you think about, okay, I've got to motivate a sales organization around a strategy. And this is something that people need to buy into today, tomorrow, and for a long time. How do you think about that? Because that's a really, really, really big undertaking from a strategy standpoint, from a communications, from a leadership standpoint. How do you approach a problem that big?
Yeah. And just to be clear, you're looking for how, all following the executive meeting, it gets approved, et cetera. How do we make sure that we get this actioned or live within an organization?
Yes. How do you go from that big executive meeting to, okay, now I've got to explain it to 250 people and get them to buy into it every day for a year while we enact this strategy?
Yep. And you're right. I mean, to succeed on some of these things, there's generally lots of levers, right, that need to happen to be successful. But if you understand your business well enough, the chances are pretty good that the success of this strategy or this program really boil down to 2, 3, maybe 4 key things. Okay. So my first advice would be to understand what is primary and doggedly focus on what is primary, and then make secondary. So if the keys to you reaching your outcomes, success, et cetera, depend on improved contract compliance and new logo acquisitions, and you've got a 90% chance that you're going to hit your revenue and profitability number, if you do those 2 things really well, those are the 2 things that you talk about all the time with your organization. You give them an overview on what the objectives are, what the goals are, what the mission is for the business, and then all the time talk about those two main points, whether it be regular dashboards, all hands meetings, shout outs, make sure that it's connected to their comp plan. Everything you can possibly do, you tick and tie to those major primary objectives that are going to drive the large majority of the performance. That simplicity, too often as executives, an executive will say, well, I've said that 4 times, or I've said that 3 times. Right. The reality is you said it about 10% as much as you need to say it. Right. You literally need to be a broken record talking about it all the time.
Right. Over and over and over until, I forget the CEO who said this, he said, say it until people are absolutely sick of hearing it, because then you know that it's starting to sink in. There's also a people aspect to this of making sure people understand when you talk about those 2 really important KPIs, making sure they understand, hey, here's how your team fits into those KPIs, and make them understand that they're a critical part of that process. And so there's a big people aspect of it that I know is primary on your mind when you communicate to a large audience.
Well, there's no doubt about it. And there's a couple of different ways to do it. I think number one is, as you're launching as you're going to market with this kind of stuff, or if you're launching it, it is absolutely critical that your leaders, the leaders you have in your organization, they understand what it means to them, what it means to them around happiness, what it means from a compensation plan, what it means, like, if you're going to stay employed here, right? And then there's the same exercise needs to go throughout the organization. So at any point in time, if the CEO of the business walks by and asks Bobby Joe, how do you support the retention effort that Matt is driving within his business? Bobby Joe knows exactly what their goals are, exactly how they're measured, and exactly how they're going to get paid when they're successful at it. That's when you know you're doing it right.
Mm-hmm. I think it's probably a fable, but the story of, in the 60s, there was a janitor at NASA, and some visiting dignitary asked the janitor, what do you do here? And the janitor said, I'm putting a man on the moon. And it's, we all understand how we feed into the larger purpose and then the larger story. Okay, Eric, I know you had a very serious and very important question to ask Matt. So, let's have it.
Well, I do. And it's it's critical that we ask this question, that we get an answer, a quality answer. Matt, can you describe your relationship with presentations using a song title?
Like PG-13 tops. Yes.
Okay. Right. The first couple of ideas that I came up with were NC-17. So
probably no Eminem, no Dr. Dre.
Right. I will say it's getting hot in here.
An early 2000s banger. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Now, hold on. Why?
I've been in enough of these to know it and to feel it when it indeed gets hot in here. And I couldn't take off all my clothes. I had to just stay fully clothed.
Right. Just sweat. If you do have questions for Matt, please pop them in the chat, because Matt, you had no idea that I was going to ask this. And so I feel a little bad blindsiding with you. Are you comfortable talking about 4 sauces and 3 liquids?
So, yeah. So I think it's 3 sauces and 4 liquids.
I'm sorry. Deep apologies on my part.
So, yeah. And I think everybody has been on teams or has, been a part of this or whatnot. And you have your goofy little icebreakers, the 2 truths and a lie, or trust falls, or all that kind of stuff. It gets kind of lame. And, one of the things that I've done in the past to try to get to know people is, I will ask them a question that, you, Eric, I'll use you as an example. Eric, you're on a cruise, and your cruise gets shipwrecked, and everyone on the cruise perishes except you. And you get washed ashore on this deserted magical island. And on this magical island, you have the ability to fully sustain yourself with, food and vegetables. Obviously, there's water all around. So you have the skills to catch fish and all of this. And you get nothing else other than an unlimited supply of your 3 favorite sauces. And so That's really one of the icebreakers that I've done in the past. And the idea is to talk about some things that are a little bit off the wall, to learn a little bit about each other and kind of like get the fun jackassery going.
Oh,
That
yeah, I love that. That is such a great icebreaker.
you're going to be thinking about your sauces now.
Right.
Someone in the comments said for a song title, "You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet," which I think is wonderful.
Right.
I
Oh,
love
yeah, I love that.
That's very funny. Okay, that lit up in a part of my brain. I can't remember my youngest child's middle name or what I had for breakfast, but I can remember where I was the first time I got the three sauces question. So there, whatever that says about me.
I remember
or
somebody picked chili as one of their 3 sauces, and I'm like, does that even count as a sauce?
Yeah, it's a
Right.
topping. It's a topping on a burger. It's a sauce.
Right.
Or on
That's
a
like,
hot dog.
is a hot dog a sandwich? It's semantics. So, Matt, if you could boil it down to a, we're moving off of sauces. So if you boil your chili down to just one thing, so if you could give just one thing, if someone says, "Hey, I've got a really big exec presentation. This is so big. What's your one tip?" If you had to say one thing, how can people change the way they prepare? Or what can they add to their prep strategy that will serve them well?
Yeah, if it's just one thing, I would say that it's mindset, which Eric, we talked a little bit about that as we were discussing it. If you can realize that this meeting you get to do, it's not a meeting that you have to do, you're going to be in a great spot. And within that, it's really your job to help the decision makers or to help these senior executives make the best decision they can possibly make in the shortest time possible. If you get into that mindset, then all the other stuff kind of starts to fall in place. The things you need to prepare for, your objectives, what potential questions you're going to have, navigating stakeholders, it all kind of flows down from that first biggest thing to think about.
I think that's so helpful. And I think, I mean, it sounds a little woo woo, but the mindset of being of service, because I can't tell you how many presentations I've given where I thought about one person and one person only, and that person was me. And I thought, oh man, I want to sound smart. I want to look good. I want to make sure that they've seen how much I work. And that's not a good experience for anybody. But when you're thinking about them and their outcomes and what's on their mind and thinking about how can I be of service to the audience and give the information and prepare in a way that best serves them and their outcome, it's immediately, and I think it takes the pressure off of you as a speaker. It turns into a conversation more than feeling like a performance. And so I think that mindset shift is absolutely huge. I think it's a tough one, but I think it makes a massive difference.
It does.
Matt, I have a question for you too. I know we've all heard the Gallup data about like employee engagement is at the lowest it's ever been. And there's all that context kind of shaping the workplace. What advice would you give to an aspiring executive or an up and coming leader to help them get in that mindset? Like if they're in an environment where that's difficult, what does that practice look like?
Ooh, that's a good question. The first thing that comes to my mind, Eric, is really 2 things you have to do at the same time. I think number one is this whole concept of everyone in an organization clearly understanding the performance mandate. Contrary to popular belief, organizations perform better and they have better cultures when every single person on the team knows exactly what good looks like.
Yeah.
We run into culture problems when it's nebulous or it's all okay, or you don't know how you're measured, or this is not just with sales organizations, this is with every organization. So,
or when
think,
one leader values something and another leader values another, and they're not on the same line about what the higher order objective is.
That's exactly right. And so I think that would be number one. I think it's really, really important that every single person on the team clearly knows what good looks like for the organization and how they contribute to that. I think number two, it might be a little bit controversial, Eric, but not every organization is a fit for every single person. And if you're an executive, you have precious little time to get your team right. I remember I would qualify it as the first big job that I had where I was leading leaders. you know, my boss sat me down at lunch one time and she said, you know, Matt, congratulations. She's like, I'm just letting you know you have 6 months to get this organization the way you want it. After 6 months, this organization is yours, whether you want it or not. And that was really good advice because it helped me understand. And trust me, I've done it wrong. I have not gotten my team right within 6 months, and I have paid the price for it. But every time that, even though it involves some hard decisions and people are involved in it, for the good of the business and the good of what you're trying to accomplish, you as the executive leader, you need to be comfortable with the team that you have. And it's your responsibility to get it that way.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, I know we're coming up at the end of our time. We've talked about the vital Nelly songs and sauces, which is kind of all I really had on my agenda for the day. Matt, thank you so much for doing this. I think that when we talk about communications in a corporate setting, so often it gets reduced to, well, do the slides look good? Do you have executive presence? And what happens in the room? And so I really appreciate the conversation about how much thought goes into communications as a part of enacting strategy at a higher level. I appreciate how thoughtful and intentional you are and sharing your knowledge with us today on that. So thank you so much for your time. It was wonderful to talk to you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys have me back, and we can talk about the 4 liquids next time if you want to. We ran out of time.
We've not even scratched the surface. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye, everyone.